first, Neil. So but thanks for the comments and for the compliments. Yeah, I think we could be open about the date of the RFP when that makes sense. But a project has to start somewhere. You know, it starts from an idea, and that idea evolves, and you start making some progress. And I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that all we're asking to do here today is we're beginning the steps to explore. And the exciting thing is we have partners, and everyone's sort of interested in this, and there are a lot of unknowns. And if we wait to have all the answers before we at least start this process of putting a team together to begin the process, I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. And I view the community outreach as a very long, ongoing process, and I don't see a big downside to beginning some preliminary public outreach to the community. Hey, here's our idea. Here's what we're exploring. Here's the path we're going to take. And as we don't have all the answers to all the questions, but as we get them, we're going to be happy to share them with you. We're going to share them with you, through more meetings, through websites, through mail-ins, whatever it is that we decide. But I think, again, we're trying to move an idea a little bit more forward with this arrangement with our partners. And then a lot of the hard work begins. So I think you raised some interesting points. I could be open-minded about the RFP date. As I said, Kevin Burke and Richie Kessel and I will be sitting down in the next couple of weeks to discuss more of a process. But I think we need to move the ball forward on this project, and that's why I think it's important to at least get the MOU done and some of the preliminary steps done. And Mike, what did I miss?
Well, I think there were a lot of lessons learned, and I think we're using those lessons. We're taking advantage of those. We are doing those preliminary studies. We do have independent technical consultants. We are coordinating the environmental reviews with the lease process. And we will continue to coordinate that throughout the entire term of it. So we're doing those early action items. We're coordinating with MMS. We're on the time schedule that MMS is recommending, both in terms of the lease request, in terms of the environmental work that we're doing, and in terms of the RFP solicitation. It's not our recommendation solely in a vacuum. We're talking to those agencies. So what we're doing is responding not only to what happened a number of years ago here in Jones Beach, but based on the information and guidance from the regulatory agencies, both on the federal and the state level, that are responsible for doing that. Now, what we need to do now is to take that information, whether it's the early action items now, with our consultants to go and have those meetings. We're ready to do those. Those desktop studies will be ready next month. The field assessments are expected to begin in June. As the lease request goes in, there will also be parallel tracks for other environmental permits that necessitate some of those studies as we go with the RFP process. We do not have a project until the RFP goes out. So that's all part of the process of getting this entire project reviewed and to determine if, in fact, it's going to be viable.
That's a good point. I forgot to mention too. NIPA is exploring an offshore wind project in the Great Lakes, and they have an RFP out there, and they expect the results. We're going to learn a lot from there. It's going to be different because it's a different project, lakes versus the ocean, but we'll learn a lot from that. And I think we're going to learn a lot from as Cape Wind moves forward. And some other projects. There's a project in Delaware trying to get off the ground, Rhode Island, and that's great. It's all along the seaboard, and I think we'll learn a lot from those projects as well. I'm not interested in being first. I'm interested in getting it right, and if we can make this work. And so I think let's get the information. And I'm not concerned about the process as much. And there'll be those who oppose it. I think there are going to be as many who oppose it as support it. I think we're going to take out a lot of that by the fact now we're 13 to 17 miles offshore. I think the fishermen will certainly have their legitimate concerns. I think the most vocal concerns were the folks who were opposed to the last project being 2 miles offshore, and the aesthetic concerns. think we take that off the table right away by being 13 to 17 miles out. And we'll need to then focus on the avian and the fishermen and some of the other legitimate concerns that you raised, Neil. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a 5-year contract, correct? The MOU is going to be for 5 years, is that what I understand? And
Maximum.
maximum, okay. And we can't move forward with cost sharing unless we have something in place. So
Right.
doing some kind of EIS independently wouldn't be cost effective for us. Before we enter, we'd have to enter the MOU
That's a
to
good
get
point.
some cost sharing. And the way the federal government and all state governments work, 5 years may not be enough time, even for an RFP. So I think we need to, like you said, at least get the MOU in place, and then as long as we're kept informed on a very regular basis and timely basis of what's going on, I think we as trustees can follow the progress. I don't know
Yeah,
if an
I think
RFP will...
that makes sense, and I'd be happy in part of my monthly president report to give you a monthly update.
Yeah, because this is a major deal. I mean, you know, now that we're able to do it not alone and not having as much expense in at least exploring it, I think it's important for us to start it, but I do think you have to keep the trustees involved on a regular basis, and the timing of the RFP is important, and maybe, you know, we don't know when that would be. I mean, you have a timeline sort of now, but you don't know until we start it, right, to start the process.
If I could,
I have confidence in the current management's ability to be transparent in what they've done. They've been incredibly transparent and have been reporting almost to the point where there's so much reporting
I agree.
back to us. I also believe that they will listen and hear the public and environmental community's concerns. I think sometimes those concerns are a little overreaching and sometimes not necessarily based in any scientific fact, but I do know that they will address those concerns regardless of how many of them come up. And I think that this is a very initial step to create a partnership with 2 other energy concerns, one of which is led by a person who's been through it and has learned from the prior experience. And I think that we as trustees now, I don't think now is the time to debate the environmental concerns of this project, but rather the benefits of joining into a collaborative with 2 other entities to move forward on something that needs to happen. We need to find new renewable sources of energy so we can reduce our energy rate and our dependence on foreign oil and other unclean sources of power. And this is a good way to start. Working with 2 other agencies, shares the cost, shares the burden, shares the responsibility. The management here at LIPA has been nothing but transparent since Kevin Law took office. And I am sure he will be as so, and he will address the concerns of the environmental and the public.
If you want to make transparency the question, I don't think that was the essence of my point. I think my point is more about engaging people in such a way that they understand and get it, and get what they can see as a credible response on the issues. But why 350 megawatts? That's a question of transparency. I don't think we've, as a board, been given an explanation for why that is the number that this project is seeking. I don't understand why that comes first. We have a state plan that says we're supposed to have 30% renewables. To me, we should be working back from the state plan of 30% renewables and saying how much can we get in this area based on science and based on, you know, real expert analyses. And for example, Cape Wind has just approved 3.5 megawatt turbines, but there's 6 megawatt turbines out there. So what are we going to look at under this project? If we're heading toward an RFP in July, my guess would be that we're going to put in conditions that say utility viable or proven technology, which is going to lead us towards 3.5 megawatts, even though the project's going to be built 6 years later when 6 megawatt turbines will become the norm, and we'll be embracing an older technology that'll get us much less than we could have gotten in terms of clean energy for Long Island. So I'm absolutely thrilled that the management is charging ahead on this. It's not a criticism of goals. I do have some concerns about whether the process is going to be one that will not get bogged down with criticisms because we haven't prepared ourselves for the things that are going to be said and going to be questioned. And frankly, I do think we need to be able to say at every step along the way that science backs up every one of our decisions. So it should back up the 350 megawatt choice. As it exists right now, I don't see a scientific basis for the 350 megawatt choice. And so I think everything that you're going to be answering questions about in the public, they're going to ask why you picked this specific site. All of those questions, we need to be able to have an answer that's based in science. And
Jim, you had a comment?
Yeah,